Hey, welcome to my review of Vampire Diaries 6 Shadow Souls. I'm going to make this review up off of the top of my head while I go through my notes, because that's way easier than spending 7 hours just writing a thorough review. It's a long book, it's like 600 pages. So, let me start by talking about the possession storyline. You might remember this was like 60 to 70% of the previous book was about these demons possessing everybody in town. It was super creepy and scary. There must have been a huge backlash against that, because that basically almost got erased in this book. It's like 5% of the book at most, and that's good. I really didn't like the evil, scary demon children stuff. We still get a little bit of it though. So Misao promised to leave town forever, but she didn't say when she'd leave town forever. Ha 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 ha! So that is a loophole she created so she could stay around town, and now every single kid in town who's under the age of 18 is possessed. They break out of their houses and kill the sheriff. It's just not safe to be outside at night anymore. And Carolyn is the worst case scenario, because she's having a werewolf baby, so she's turning into a werewolf, and she's also got that Malik monster inside her while being possessed by a demon. So she's half werewolf, half demon, half monster. It's just not good for her. So, like I said, this subplot lasts about 5% of the book at most. It's very much not important. I think they should have cut it out of the book completely, because it's just weird how we have a 300-page gap, and then all of a sudden, evil demon children again! And then we have a huge 100-page gap, and then, oh, evil demon children! Ha ha ha! It's just weird. And most of it is scenes of Matt hanging out with old women, like Mrs. Flowers, and the one Japanese woman, and then the doctor. So it's just kind of strange. Anyway, so the main plot is that they're going to the Dark Dimension in order to save Stefan. Stefan's in prison in the Dark Dimension. They're going to get the 2 keys and save him. So maybe I misread the end of the previous book, because I thought Shinichi was going to tell them exactly where Stefan is. But instead, he just tells them Stefan's in the Dark Dimension. That's like saying Stefan's in New York. That's not good enough. They need more information to go on. And as for the keys, well, they have riddles for the keys. One's in the Silver Nightingale's instrument, and the other is buried in Blottowood's ballroom. It's like, no, Shinichi, give our heroes more information. It doesn't really matter, because our heroes don't start looking for the keys until page 344, so that's past the halfway point of the book. It's just kind of ridiculous. It takes them so long to actually start the story of trying to save Stefan. I feel that's one of the problems with the book. I feel like a good editor would have been able to cut out like 100, 150, 200 pages, depending on how much the editor wants to cut down the book. So, what else? Elena's now telepathic. She's learning how to control her aura, which was actually really cool. So she can push her aura to her eyes and she sees super far, and she can push her aura to her legs and run super far. She's basically got superpowers now. It's cool, and her aura is super special. It's like vampire catnip. So without trying, she's just sending out vibes that make vampires want to show up and make out with her. And that's so hilarious. It explains so much about the previous books, why vampires keep trying to make out with her. Okay, so we start off, Matt, Damon, and Elena are going to the Demon Gate in Arizona on a road trip. Matt and Damon fight with each other all the time. Elena says she's had enough. She's going out to get air when Damon picks her up, and he's like, here's some air! And he flies with her, and then they start making out. They make out a lot in this book. So it's very passionate, especially because her aura touches his, and it's like fireworks! It's so amazing. So she gets to see his soul, right? So his soul is a small boy who's chained to a giant rock. That's the metaphor for his soul. And she sees this poor child like 3 times. So this happens like 3 times, and in the end he gets saved. The chains go away. Hooray! Something else that happens about 3 times is that Elena has an out-of-body experience. So she flies out of her body and goes to Stefan, and he's about to die, but she cries, and her tears heal him, because they are the tears of a pure maiden. And pure maiden? She was just making out with his brother. She keeps cheating on her fiance's brother all the time. I don't really quite get why she's this perfect, wonderful angel, because she's not, but then again, she did die and come back to life, so I guess she is an angel. Anyway, um, they decide they're going to split up into two groups because they've got a group of vampires chasing after them. And this is really, really stupid, because by splitting up into two groups, that means one of the humans is going to be left alone. The human's going to be by himself, and he's going to die when the vampires attack. And he, in this case, is Matt. Matt must realize he's a sitting duck for vampires, so he just goes back home and gets involved with that pointless possession subplot, like I said. So now Damon and Elena are alone. I feel like that's the reason Matt left. The author just wanted Damon and Elena to be alone so they could have more make-out time and more, passionate dialogue. This book is basically just Damon and Elena love fest. So she has a naughty dream about him, but he's brooding and she tries to comfort him, and then they kiss and their minds meet, and so he drinks her blood. It's a very passionate night, and then Damon loses his memory. So this is something else. So Shinichi said he would take Damon's memory, but he didn't say which memory. Ha 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 ha! So he stole this memory, and that's totally a lie. They definitely clarified which memories that Shinichi would be able to take. But whatever, this is the only time Shinichi steals Damon's memory, so it's really not important, but it sounded like it would be super important that the villain could steal Damon's memories whenever he wanted, right? Okay, so they go to the Dark Dimension. Oh, Bonnie and Meredith show up, by the way, because there's really nothing for them to do in town besides talk to Carolyn, who's being creepy and evil, so they decide to come along to the Dark Dimension. And this was actually really kind of a cool area. So this is supposed to be like one of the higher levels of hell, like Limbo, where we've got demons, and we've got vampires, and we've got werewolves, and there are angels there. There are angels that are kind of guarding the town, but they're not really doing a good job of it. And slavery. So humans are all slaves, except for like the homeless humans that are selling their memories in exchange for food. And the women aren't allowed to talk or be seen, really. So they travel through town in a litter. Oh yeah, and some of the people are dead too. This is some sort of weird afterlife area. There's the red moon is in the sky all the time. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down. It's just perpetually in the sky. It's actually kind of a cool place. That's one of the things I like about this book. It was really focused, especially compared to the previous book, focus on this somewhat interesting location. Yeah. Anyway, so they're traveling through the city through a litter when Elena sees an old man whipping his slave, and Elena interferes to save the woman, and Damon is forced to kill the man, and she tells Damon, quick, we've got to get her to the hospital, take her to the hospital. And that simple thing just is crazy, because she, a slave, just told her master what to do, and he listened to her. And so this starts a huge slave revolt throughout the entire Dark Dimension. And an angry mob shows up, and they want to basically kill Elena and Stefan. No, they want to kill Elena and Damon. As a result, Damon fights them, and he's saved by Sage, who is this incredibly buff vampire who knows Damon. There's some sort of secret as to Sage's real identity, and Sage was really interesting when he was introduced, but then he just kind of hides around in the background for the rest of the book. It doesn't really do too much. Okay, so we're probably saving him for the next book. So let's see. She's healed. The poor slave woman is healed. And Damon's mad because Elena got hurt by the bad guy's whip, so he has to heal the whip wound on her cheek. So obviously he does this by sucking out her blood, and they start making out some more. They make out a lot. So because of the Slave Revolt, they decide to make a public example out of Elena. So Damon is forced to publicly whip her 10 times, but he uses his vampire powers so she doesn't feel it. And then a bunch of weirdos are like, wow, that's really cool. You whipped her and she almost didn't react at all. Wow, that's crazy. Could you do that for us? I want to see that as a magic show. And we're gonna come back to those guys later, believe it or not. Anyway, Elena realizes this is a terrible situation. She's gonna have to lead a revolution to stop the Dark Dimension. She's going to end the slavery. She's going to make women equal to men. She promises she's going to come back and do it someday. I'm not sure I want to see a book where she does that. I really don't know. Anyway, Lady Alma. Okay, so the poor slave woman that Elena went through all this trouble to save, this complete stranger, actually is Lady Alma. She's actually from an aristocratic family that was enslaved when a general attacked. Her family used to make jewels, and so they go back to her family's house, and she remembers where they've got their secret cache of jewels. So she finds all the jewels, and now she's super rich, and now she has like 200 servants, and they're living the high life in the super fancy house, and she makes them fancy dresses. And this happens over and over again. She makes them several dresses and double length chapter explaining what the dresses are like while the girls try on the dresses. It is so weird and out of place that the girls are playing dress up in the dark dimension. It's crazy times. Anyway, after this really, really long delay, they decide, hey, we should get back to saving Stefan. That's the whole reason we're here. So the first key was, it's inside the Silver Nightingale's instrument. That's the riddle. Well, the Silver Nightingale it's a nickname for a famous harpist. So they go to the harpist's house and, she puts on a performance and they search through the house trying to find harps and various instruments. Damon and Elena are forced to make out as a distraction. Oh, gee, they're making out again. And finally, Elena realizes the key is inside a pen. A pen is a writing instrument. Aha! So she solves the riddle and gets the key. And that's when Elena sees Damon has 10 wounds on his back. They're from the whipping earlier. He actually protected her. He took the whip wounds for her. And she's so moved by this incredible act of compassion. And, he was the one whipping you, Elena. Did you forget that? Anyway, more dress-up time as Elena puts on a fancy outfit to see Stefan. And Stefan is pretty much dead. He's dying inside a cage. But she manages to get magic vampire wine into him with the help of a friendly kitsune. Just a random kitsune's there, and he helps her figure out how to save Stefan. So now Stefan's gonna live another 2 weeks as opposed to dying in 3 days. And this is important because in 2 weeks, that's when they have Blotterwood's big party. And that's where the second key is. It's in Blotterwood's ballroom. I have to say, this is ridiculous that our heroes decide to wait 2 weeks for this party in order to go there and search for the key. Like, Stefan's dying. Why don't you just go to her house right now and search? It's ridiculous. But, okay, so this is the big finale. They know that they're gonna leave the Dark Dimension forever, so there's a fond farewell to all their friends. And Sage decides he's gonna, use his dog to search for the key. So, he follows through his dog, is running through the city. He manages to get Misau's star ball. So now they have a bunch of star balls, including Misau, so they can control Misau and make her do whatever they want. Super important, but it's not important yet. She doesn't show up in this book at all, which is weird. Shinichi and Misao are the main villains of this trilogy, and they're not in this book at all. So, anyway, it's weird. It's just our heroes solving riddles. So they go to Blotterwoods. Blotterwood is this woman who is cursed. She turns into an owl at nighttime, and she's really angry and evil, and she tries to kill our heroes because Elena got inside her library. They barely managed to escape. Elena does a waltz with Damon. So it turns out that her ballroom is this really giant area. So Damon is forced to make a deal with those weirdos from earlier who really like seeing a person get whipped. So he decides he's going to whip Elena 5 times, so these guys will help search for the key. But Elena needs her friends, Bonnie and Meredith. Yeah, Bonnie and Meredith have been totally unimportant this whole time. But they finally help out here. So they hold each other and they share the pain together. So all 3 of them share the pain of being whipped together for these vampire frat boys, as Elena calls them. And it turns out being ultimately pointless. There's no reason for that to happen because after this, Elena runs away back to Blotterwood's library. And there are star balls in there, right? Star balls, that's Blotterwood's ballroom. So that's where the key is located. So yeah, they went through all this trouble of getting guys to dig in the ballroom for nothing, because the real ballroom is here. So she gets the key, and Blotterwood, tries to kill her for 70 pages. This is supposed to be a really scary big finale, but it's not. It's kind of more annoying than anything else because Blotterwood's just a giant owl screams, "I'm gonna kill you! I'm gonna kill you! I'm gonna kill you! I'm gonna kill you!" That's it. It's just her screaming over and over again and attacking people. So they rush to the prison. It's so bad that like there's a jailbreak and the Guardians show up and it's weird. Anyway, they go to Stefan. They save Stefan, and right when they're about to escape, Blotterwood shows up, and Elena uses her wings of protection. So once again, she pulls a pair of angel wings out of nowhere without knowing how, and uses it to kill the villain. Well, that's really convenient. The helpful Kitsune gives them a bouquet of flowers, and then they just go back to town. They go back to town where they're reunited with Matt and the others. So now they're all together in the boarding house again. Shinichi shows up, and he sort of teases what's going to happen in the next book. He says he knows everybody's big secret, like Sage's secret identity, Meredith's big secret. He knows one of them's a murderer. So we'll look forward to that, I guess. Stefan and Elena get super lovey-dovey together, and Damon sees something weird in the bouquet, so he reaches out and grabs it, and it turns out it's a vampire to human potion, or something like that. So now, Damon is a human again! Oh no! And I don't see why this is a big deal. They could easily take 5 minutes to turn him back into a vampire, what with Vampire Stefan here. But we needed a big cliffhanger, so we're going to pretend Damon's human again is a terrible cliffhanger. Oh, I do feel really bad for Stefan. I wish he had been the one who turned into a human, because he's the one who actually wants to be human to be with Elena. So that's the end of the book. Overall, way better than the last book. The story is much more focused. It doesn't have that creepy, scary stuff all the time. And like I said, the Dark Dimension was somewhat interesting with its new mythology and stuff. It's just a bit too long. I think I said that a judicious editor could have cut out like 100 pages, 150 to 200 pages, depending on how the editor felt that day. Because it's super weird that, they don't start looking for the keys until halfway through the book because they were too busy having Damon and Elena make out all the time. So, better than the last book. I give Vampire Diaries number 6, Shadow Souls, a 5 out of 10.